Behind the polished smiles and carefully lit close-ups of classic Hollywood was a haze no studio wanted photographed. While the rest of America demonized marijuana as a moral plague, some of the most celebrated names in film history were quietly passing joints between takes. One iconic filmmaker even completed an entire Western while completely high. These weren't casual dabblers. These were committed users whose habits startled even insiders who thought they'd seen it all. These are Hollywood's most infamous secret cannabis devotees.
And it happens. I go through. Well, you're learning something too, my friend.
Number 1. Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum didn't pretend to be dangerous, he radiated it. The heavy-lidded stare, the slow drawl, the sense that he was permanently unimpressed with authority. Off-screen, that reputation wasn't manufactured. In 1948, Mitchum became the face of Hollywood's worst-kept secret when police raided a private Hollywood Hills gathering during the filming of Rachel and the Stranger. Inside, they found Mitchum and actress Lila Leeds calmly passing a marijuana cigarette. The press went nuclear. Headlines screamed about moral decay and criminal movie stars. Mitchum was sentenced to 60 days in county jail, and industry insiders openly declared his career finished. Even Mitchum seemed resigned, quietly telling reporters it felt like the end of the road. But RKO studio head Howard Hughes saw something else entirely, an opportunity. Instead of abandoning Mitchum, Hughes launched a carefully staged redemption campaign, presenting the actor as a fallen man seeking forgiveness. Mitchum played along publicly, but privately, nothing changed. Years later, Mitchum dismissed the jail sentence with trademark indifference, joking that it felt like a low-budget vacation with worse food. Crew members from later productions noted his frequent disappearances between takes, returning with redder eyes and an even more relaxed presence. The cigarette breaks became an open secret. Ironically, the scandal only strengthened Mitchum's appeal. Audiences weren't repelled, they were intrigued. His arrest added a layer of authenticity no publicity department could manufacture. As director Otto Preminger later observed, Mitchum didn't act like a rebel, he simply was one. In classic Hollywood fashion, the scandal meant to destroy him instead turned him into a permanent symbol of cinematic defiance.
Just a jackknife and smack heat dear.
Number 2. Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong didn't just change music. He changed how artists survived pressure. While audiences saw the smiling trumpeter with boundless charm, behind the scenes Armstrong was one of Hollywood's most devoted marijuana users. For decades, cannabis was as essential to him as his horn. Armstrong smoked daily, often referring to marijuana as gauge, treating it not as a vice but as a personal medicine. During film appearances like High Society and Hello, Dolly, he was rarely without it. He carried his supply discreetly in labeled cigarette cases and made little effort to hide his enthusiasm among trusted company. Studios worked tirelessly to keep his habit out of the press. When Armstrong was jailed for possession in Las Vegas, money and influence ensured the story disappeared before it could explode. What shocked insiders wasn't the arrest, it was Armstrong's refusal to feel ashamed. He openly argued that marijuana had nothing to do with hard drugs and credited it with calming his nerves, sustaining creativity, and helping him endure racism in an industry that profited from his talent while limiting his freedom. He even wrote to President Eisenhower advocating legalization, an unthinkable act at the time.
Men can be very spiteful when they're hurt, can't they?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be spiteful, but I am hurt.
Number 3. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead never lived halfway, and she certainly didn't use marijuana discreetly. The sharp-tongued stage and screen legend treated cannabis as both pleasure and provocation, once famously declaring it the most affordable fun available. In a town built on secrecy, Bankhead's openness terrified studio executives. During Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, Bankhead regularly arrived on set visibly high. Scenes dragged, takes multiplied, budgets inflated. Hitchcock, infamous for absolute control, was reportedly furious, yet powerless. When questioned about her appearance, Bankhead waved it off, joking that a woman stranded at sea shouldn't look refreshed. Her parties became Hollywood folklore. Guests would arrive sober and leave altered, only later realizing the desserts had been quietly infused. Invitations were coveted and feared in equal measure. Studios issued warnings. Bankhead ignored them. When threatened with contract termination, she allegedly responded that giving up men would be easier than giving up marijuana. That defiance cost her roles, as studios labeled her unreliable, but among Hollywood's hidden cannabis circle, Bankhead became something else entirely, a symbol of resistance. She refused to perform repentance, refused to apologize, and refused to play the obedient starlet. Her career suffered, but her legend grew. In an industry built on control, Tallulah Bankhead's unapologetic indulgence made her an underground icon long after the cameras stopped rolling.
No! I want to ask my questions now, and I want to have my answers.
Number 4. Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre's unsettling screen presence wasn't entirely crafted, some of it was chemically assisted. Known for his haunting stare and off-kilter delivery, Lorre turned to marijuana initially to manage chronic pain. Over time, it became a daily ritual that quietly shaped his performances. Studio executives were alarmed when they discovered Lorre smoking in his dressing room before scenes on the Maltese Falcon. Instead of intervening, director John Huston leaned into it. Lorre's altered rhythm, the pauses, the sudden intensity, the eerie calm, became part of the character's DNA. Fellow actors noticed something unusual. Vincent Price once remarked that Lorre seemed both lethargic and razor-focused at the same time, a contradiction that only later made sense. The cannabis softened Lorre's anxiety while sharpening his perception, producing a style no one else could replicate. By the early 1950s, directors quietly scheduled Lorre's scenes around his sweet spot. Too little marijuana and he was restless. Too much and lines vanished. Crews learned to manage his intake like clockwork. Studios never made his habit public. The performances were too valuable. Lorre maintained his routine until the end of his life, leaving behind a body of work that remains unsettling, unforgettable, and inseparably linked to Hollywood's most quietly tolerated secret.
Where's the swimming pool? You must have a swim.
Number 5. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake's image was built on mystery, the sideways glance, the curtain of blonde hair, the promise of danger beneath glamour. But behind that carefully engineered allure was a growing dependence studios worked desperately to hide. At the height of her fame, Lake relied heavily on marijuana just to get through long shooting days. The warning signs appeared early. While filming Sullivan's Travels, director Preston Sturges noticed abrupt shifts in her behavior. Before breaks, Lake was sharp and controlled. After her private cigarette time, she became unpredictable, sometimes difficult, sometimes luminous in a way the camera adored. Rather than confront her, Sturges quietly adjusted scenes to match her condition. Paramount chose management over intervention. Lake was assigned a constant companion, officially there for support, unofficially tasked with regulating her cannabis intake. The goal wasn't sobriety, it was balance. Just enough to keep anxiety down, not enough to derail production. That fragile arrangement collapsed during the hour before dawn. Lake appeared so visibly impaired that multiple scenes had to be red-hot, draining money and patience. Executives who once protected her began labeling her unreliable. By the late 1940s, marijuana and alcohol combined into a storm no studio could contain. The actress, once earning top-tier paychecks, found herself quietly unemployable. Years later, Lake reflected that the camera exposes everything, even what you try to hide. Her descent became an unspoken cautionary tale, whispered to young actresses tempted by cannabis as creative escape, unaware of how quickly the illusion could turn unforgiving.
Speak Italian, signorita.
But it's not important.
Signorina.
Number 6. Jack Kerouac. Before he became the voice of restless America, Jack Kerouac collided briefly, and disastrously, with Hollywood. Hired as a script doctor, he quickly revealed himself as incompatible with studio culture. Kerouac believed marijuana unlocked truth, rhythm, and honesty, and he smoked constantly while rewriting formulaic scripts into what executives called chaotic, unreadable prose. His undoing came swiftly. When MGM boss Louis B. Mayer discovered Kerouac sitting cross-legged on the studio lot, openly smoking, the confrontation became legendary. Kerouac didn't retreat or apologize. He reportedly offered Mayer a hit. Mayer responded with fury, ordering Kerouac removed immediately. The job ended, but the damage and inspiration lingered. Those marijuana-fueled nights rewriting studio scripts became the laboratory where Kerouac refined his spontaneous prose technique. Hollywood taught him structure, and marijuana helped him break it. Years later, an anonymous producer admitted that one major MGM film from the early 1950s contains an uncredited scene written by Kerouac during an all-night, cannabis-soaked rewrite session. The studio buried the credit, but the words remained.
It's either you stay or go, you can't leave me out.
Number 7. Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday's relationship with marijuana was never about rebellion, it was about survival. Cannabis helped steady her nerves before recording sessions, especially in Hollywood environments where pressure and discrimination were constant. Her tolerance stunned musicians and engineers alike. During the scoring of a major late 1940s film, Holiday reportedly smoked several joints before stepping into the booth, then delivered a flawless, devastating performance in a single take. Sound engineers were speechless. What might have overwhelmed others seemed to focus her entirely, but Holiday's marijuana use became a weapon against her. Federal Bureau of Narcotics Chief Harry Anslinger fixated on her, using possession charges as leverage to intimidate studios and venues. While white performers' habits were quietly ignored, Holiday was punished. When she was cast for a major Hollywood project, federal pressure forced producers to drop her. Studios, many run by executives who attended cannabis-friendly parties, chose silence over resistance. Years later, one producer admitted the truth: marijuana was merely an excuse. Holiday was targeted because she was vulnerable, outspoken, and black. Cannabis wasn't her downfall, hypocrisy was. Hollywood consumed her talent, then stood aside as authorities dismantled her career, exposing a brutal double standard that remains one of the industry's darkest chapters.
Pretty good, huh?
Number 8. Dennis Hopper. Long before Easy Rider, Dennis Hopper was already Hollywood's most notorious stoner. Studio executives labeled him difficult, unfocused, and impossible to control. Directors grew frustrated as Hopper drifted through sets in a constant haze, clashing with rigid production schedules. During Giant, his behavior tested director George Stevens to the breaking point. Hopper was frequently banished from set between scenes. James Dean reportedly defended him, explaining that Hopper wasn't malicious, he simply existed on another mental plane, blacklisted from mainstream roles. Hopper left Hollywood and absorbed European cinema, channeling his marijuana-fueled experiences into something new. That evolution exploded with Easy Rider, a film conceived, written, edited, and shaped under constant cannabis use. The irony was impossible to ignore. The same studios that once condemned Hopper now celebrated him as a visionary. His problem had become his process. As Hopper later dryly observed, nothing had changed except the revenue he generated. His journey exposed Hollywood's flexible morality. Marijuana wasn't unacceptable, failure was. Once Hopper succeeded, his habit transformed from liability into legend, cementing him as the ultimate counterculture prophet the studios never meant to create.
4. You may think you know what you're dealing with.
Number 9. John Huston lived above the rules that governed everyone else in Hollywood. As one of the industry's most respected directors, he enjoyed a level of freedom actors could only dream of, including complete tolerance for his marijuana use. Huston didn't hide it. He simply operated as if it were no one's business. Those who worked with him noticed a pattern. After lunch, Huston returned to set noticeably altered, calmer, slower, and strangely sharper. Humphrey Bogart once joked that directing under Huston meant learning to interpret instructions delivered from a different mental altitude. Studios ignored it because Huston delivered results. On location in Mexico during the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Huston's habit became outright open. With no executives watching, he smoked freely while directing, sometimes rewriting scenes on the spot. His father, actor Walter Huston, initially objected, then joined him. Crew members later described the production as unusually relaxed, punctuated by sudden bursts of brilliance. Screenwriter Truman Capote later revealed Huston's unique process. He would smoke, stare at the script in silence, then cross out entire scenes and rewrite them from scratch. Frustrating, but often inspired. Studio heads pretended not to notice because the films kept winning awards and making money. Huston's career raises an uncomfortable question. If marijuana was unacceptable, why was it ignored when genius was involved? His success proved Hollywood didn't fear cannabis, it feared losing control. Huston kept both his habit and his authority until the end, becoming living proof that rules in Hollywood were never moral, only hierarchical.
Did you cut these out from magazines?
Number 10. By the time Tuesday Weld was 16, Hollywood already knew she had a problem and chose to work around it. Marijuana was woven into her daily routine early, and instead of intervention, studios engineered systems to manage her behavior. Directors learned quickly. Demanding scenes were shot early in the day before Weld smoked. Reaction shots and emotional moments were saved for later, when she was, as one crew member carefully put it, mentally softened. This system became known unofficially as the Tuesday schedule. Rather than being punished, Weld's altered state was quietly exploited. Joan Crawford once observed that Weld seemed permanently distant, but mesmerizing. That dreamy detachment became her screen identity, something no acting coach could teach. What makes Weld's story disturbing isn't just the drug use, it's how studios leveraged it. One director later admitted they intentionally pushed for emotionally vulnerable scenes when Weld was high, knowing her defenses were lowered. Consent and protection were afterthoughts. Despite this, Weld delivered remarkable performances. Critics praised her depth, never realizing how carefully her environment was manipulated. Hollywood didn't try to save her, it tried to optimize her. Weld's career survived, but at a cost. Her story exposes an industry willing to accommodate marijuana use when it enhanced profit, while ignoring the long-term impact on a young performer still learning who she was.
Blind by a pack of money-mad pirates.
Number 11. Orson Welles. Marijuana wasn't indulgence, it was fuel. The visionary behind Citizen Kane smoked constantly while editing, convinced it allowed him to see beyond conventional structure. His editing rooms were notorious for thick smoke and sleepless marathons. During post-production on The Magnificent Ambersons, Welles locked himself inside for days, surviving on little more than cannabis and coffee. When executives forced their way in, they found brilliant sequences, and a director they no longer trusted. Welles never denied his habit. He argued openly that marijuana freed his thinking, helping him escape Hollywood's rigid formulas. That honesty terrified studio heads far more than the drug itself. Hollywood tolerated secret users. It punished public truth-tellers. Jack Warner reportedly summed it up bluntly: Welles wouldn't follow orders, and wouldn't hide his vices. That combination made him unmanageable. Despite undeniable genius, Welles was slowly pushed to the margins. In his later years, he reflected bitterly that Hollywood forgives almost anything, except honesty about the tools that create greatness. His exile wasn't caused by marijuana. It was caused by refusing hypocrisy.